We met in Cannes. He was the head of the jury of Certain Regard in 2012, and he really liked that film. Of course, that's why he gave it the prize. He was actually obsessed with it. He after watching it once, he memorized every scene, and he had a lot of questions. He wanted to know how I work with the actors, how was my editing process, how was my writing process, and he asked me what was my next project about, and I told him about the story of a nurse. Of course, it was supposed to be in Mexico, but he immediately said that if I turn it into a man, he'd like to act on it. And it was only natural for me to adapt it to shoot it in English in the States, because it's hard to fit Tim Roth in Mexico. So that's how it all began, and it was kind of quick. The movie was, we were shooting 2 years after that, and he was very much involved in the script. Every version of the script that I wrote, he would read it and comment, and his input was always good. He's very, very clever, and his sensibility is very close to mine, so we're gonna keep working together, because we became close friends, and it's a very good collaboration. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question, because the first reading regarding the title is the chronic condition of the patients, of course, the chronic illnesses. But the second one, it might be more important, is the chronic depression that David's living, and that's actually, well, that's the clue to the whole film. So, and even to the ending of the film, which people keep asking and talking about, and it's like the main subject of discussion. It's actually, it comes from the title, yeah. I never would have made a movie about death if it wouldn't have been presented to me throughout the experience of my grandmother. And then, of course, as any other person, I've always been conscious about it, because since we're kids, you know, there's one day in life where you realize that everybody's going to die. It's not easy to write a book or to make a movie about it. It's quite a complex thing, subject matter. But it's the only way to understand life, through death. And my movie, of course, doesn't give any answers, because I don't know more than any other person. But I did the movie to try to understand a little more myself, what was that experience of my grandmother in particular. And then, of course, as you point, there's other deaths in the movie. One is inspired by another person that I know that's fighting with cancer in a successful way compared to what's happening in the movie. But the struggle itself, it's quite moving and interesting and horrible, and also inspiring, because the sole fact that she's fighting for her life brings meaning to our own lives. So I try to make a movie that, even though, as you point out, has death and illness in it, would help us understand life in a better way. But there's nothing I can really comment about it, because everything I have to say, it's on the film. And even myself, every time I think about the film, I see it from a different perspective. I try to build a movie that it's similar to life in that way. And even though there's a very specific story and characters, you can give different readings to it. And every spectator will bring to the movie his own experience, and will give it a different reading. So in that way, I try to be respectful with the audience, and to have an interesting dialogue. Now, death, what do I think about it? I hope it comes as later as possible in life, and in the less painful way, of course. The reason why I like Korean cinema so much, it's mainly because it's quite original compared to the way films are made in most countries. When you're starting to watch a Korean movie, and of course I'm talking about the ones that we get outside Korea more, and I should watch more specific films, you know, from less known filmmakers. But what I like mostly is that you never know what you're gonna get. It's like, for example, Mother, which is one of my favorites. You start watching the film and you don't understand why this woman is singing in such a, you know, it's a very strange, original, beautiful way to open a movie. But at first when I was watching it in Argentina, it made me very uncomfortable, but I liked it. And then it kept evolving in a way, you know, it mixes genres, so it's not following rules. If you stop watching the movie in the middle, you have no idea of what the conclusion would be. And in most commercial movies from most countries, especially the Americans, which is the model that everybody's copying everywhere, you know from the first 5 minutes what the film is about and what will happen. So Korean films inspire me a lot in that way. Also the energy they have. It's whenever I watch a good Korean movie, and it happens to me also with the Romanian films that they're very original, the Greek films, but not many countries have these qualities. Very few countries. It's inspiring for me as a filmmaker because most writers are trying to follow very silly rules, you know. Those American books from Maki, Save the Cat, why would you bother to make a film following rules, trying to make a film that everybody has seen 100 times? And in Korea, people are brave, not only the filmmakers doing something different, but audiences embrace it, and it works. So it's a very healthy, creatively and also business-wise filmmaking. Of course, I'm talking from an outsider point of view, but to me it sounds ideal. Save the Cat is the name of one of the most famous books for screenwriting. I'm glad you don't even know about it. And then Maki is the famous, you know,